biggest goddamn drug dealer in New York City.
Tell them niggas to bring the smoke. We'll come lay them the fuck out. Simple.
I was just loading up my shipment. What's up?
Tú puedes tener tu propio cartel, ¿me entiendes? Te mueves al campo y deja que ellos tomen todo el riesgo.
James St. Patrick, many fans have started to give up on the possibility of his return, but with a new spin-off confirmed, and all of these new clues that I found, there is still a very big chance that we'll definitely see him again. But in order for all to make sense, we have to go all the way back to the very beginning. Goals learned the game from some of the best players out in Southside Jamaica, Queens. I'm sure that we're gonna see him study guys like Unique and Breeze the second we're introduced to him. Now, if there's anything that we know about the Power Universe, is that nothing is ever as it seems when we first see it. We've seen it with Lobos, Kanan, Lauren, and now we've recently seen it with Unique. Everybody thought that Unique was dead when they saw him being thrown out in the middle of nowhere on that night, as they watched his lifeless body laying on the ground, just as we saw Ghost's lifeless body also laying on the ground. But much like Unique's situation, they never exactly showed us what happened afterwards, until later, and with everything I found out as I reviewed that night, from everybody's perspective, I have a pretty good idea of how exactly Ghost managed to get away on that night, and who exactly helped him get away, and why they did it in the first place, which is what I'll be discussing in this video. You have to understand that Ghost learned the game from some of the most dangerous and smartest people in Southside Jamaica, Queens. From the very beginning, ever since he was a kid hustling in the streets of Southside Jamaica, Queens, the number one thing Ghost always wanted to do was to be the biggest drug dealer in New York City. He got rid of anybody standing in the way of his future and took over the game with some of the most dangerous men on his corner. Obviously down the line we saw him pursue other things that he was interested in, but when you really put things into perspective, Ghost seemed to always be onto something behind the scenes that the producers never really got to explore with his character. Omari Hardwick did confirm that he was always open to exploring more of Ghost's original plan for the series that the producers pretty much abandoned. If you remember correctly, Ghost had various moves up his sleeve, and we never really quite knew what his next move was going to be. While on the surface, it looks like Tariq has succeeded and where Ghost failed, based on all of the clues I found in Season 4, which I'll be exploring in this video. Ghost is clearly still pulling all of the strings behind the scenes, and I'm convinced that the very same people that Tariq has encountered and has worked with in this particular series have actually been working for someone else who has been lurking in the shadows this entire time. Let me explain. If you've been paying close attention to the show, then you have noticed that there has been someone following Tariq's every move, and we're seeing it from their perspective. The first time we see something like this is when Tariq is meeting with Monet and Pinky by the bridge. We can clearly tell that we're looking at this from someone else's perspective, from their point of view, and they're basically monitoring whatever it is that he's up to, who he's meeting with, and where he's going. We also see it in this scene. And we're also seeing this person follow anybody who could have been against Tariq. We saw it here in this scene with Carter and Noma, and we also saw it in Mecca's apartment. Someone else was in that apartment looking at Drew, and we were seeing it from their perspective, from their point of view. They were standing in another room. None of this is being done by accident. Someone has been watching Tariq and his enemies this entire time. Now, a big question that anybody would have is how exactly Ghost would have such easy access to all of these people. Who exactly could be helping him out with finding these people? Of all characters that really stood out to me in Season 4, one of these characters was actually Pinky. We don't really know too much about her character or where she came from. She was just there, and they never really showed too much about her or her background. We still don't know who she really was. But pay attention to her name, Pinky. I believe that this was a clue and a major callback to Pink Sneakers. If you remember Pink Sneakers, she was a very smart hacker, and much like Pinky, she would literally find anybody that she needed to find whenever she wanted to get something done for someone like Kanan. And remember, Ghost learned a lot of things from Kanan. He basically copied a lot of his moves, and he would obviously use someone like Pink Sneakers to his advantage when it came to looking out for Tariq. Think about it. I believe that Ghost was actually interested in recruiting Pink Sneakers, but obviously from what we saw, Dre got to her before he did. And obviously, he wanted someone, a female, that could blend in anywhere. And I believe that down the line, he crossed paths with Pinky. He had someone out there that he was using to have such easy access to whatever it is he wanted. You had to really question how exactly she crossed paths with Tariq in the first place. And she just happened to be in scenes where we saw someone obviously stalking Tariq, following them, and how easily she just happened to find anybody. This would be someone that could have actually been working for Ghost years ago, and that's a major clue that we need to pay attention to. This right here could be a major clue, a major giveaway that the same people that have been working for Ghost years ago are now assisting Tariq. Where did Pinky actually come from? She seems to have come out of nowhere. None of this is being done by accident. What Pink Sneakers was to Kanan is what Pinky was to Tariq for a reason. And she basically came out of nowhere. Someone sent her to assist Tariq. From Ghost's perspective, Tariq basically got rid of a common enemy. If Ghost and Tommy just happened to be in New York, Noma would have still been a problem for them. She was trying to take over New York City, and Tariq just happened to wipe out a common enemy that they would have obviously had a problem with down the line. She was trying to have the same amount of power that her family had overseas in the States, and I believe that New York was only the beginning for her. So now that Tariq got her out of the way, this is obviously something that would have left an impression on Ghost and Tommy, which could explain why Tariq is now getting this phone call, and why he believes that Tariq is now in the right position to actually help him out with whatever it is that he's calling him for. Now, many people would question, why exactly would Ghost want to do this? Why would he be trying to monitor whatever it is that Tariq is up to and follow him wherever he goes, keep tabs on his enemies? It's obviously to protect him and to make sure that he doesn't fail from achieving the plans that he set himself out to achieve in this series. Because this position that Tariq is now in is something that Ghost and Tommy could actually take advantage of at the moment and help it work out in their favor. Let me explain. Obviously, Tariq's journey in the drug game is only beginning at this point. He definitely has exceeded a lot of our expectations. I mean, he managed to get rid of Carter, he got rid of Kane, he got rid of his cousin, he dumped his sister, Tariq has been an absolute savage lately. He has successfully managed to take over Noma's position in the drug game, but based on that call that Tariq got at the end of the series, it's obvious that his story is clearly not over yet, and that his journey in the drug game is only getting started.
All right, first day on set. We got the whole family here. Where is he? There he is.
You got a new addition to this motherfucker.
Coming soon, baby. Coming soon. Tell him, Joe. Coming soon.
That's right, coming soon. 2026, you guys, this is gonna blow your mind.
According to 50 Cent, expansion is going to play a major role in the future of the Power Universe, and I believe that this networking machine that Tariq now has access to is only a small portion of an expansion that someone else has been secretly constructing behind the scenes over the years. Now obviously, if Ghost is still out there and has been watching Tariq this entire time, there has to be a valid reason as to why he would fake his death, and there definitely has to be something that he had to have been doing this entire time. And that is exactly what I'll be breaking down in this particular video. The most important question that people have always asked is why exactly would Ghost want to do all of this? What a lot of people seem to have forgotten over the years are the original plans for Ghost and Tommy's characters. In order to make sense of why Ghost would fake his death in the first place, we have to go back all the way to the very beginning of the original series. If you remember correctly, at the very beginning of the original series, Ghost and Tommy actually had different plans from what we actually saw play out throughout the seasons that followed. As the series progressed, Coney Kemp made Tariq's tension with Ghost take center stage of the show, and according to Macaroni Jr., they made this decision based off his performance in Barbershop 3 with Ice Cube.
And I think that's another reason my character also, they kind of built my character on that, because they, in the hiatus of season 2 going into filming season 3, I filmed Barbershop 3, and I guess they saw like me portraying that, having that up and down relationship with your father, and I guess they kind of just was like, oh, we could kind of build on that in our show, and they kind of just translated. And
however, this tension between Ghost and Tariq was not the original vision for the show. Remember, in the very beginning, Ghost and Tommy, they were always talking about expansion and making more money. Ghost always aspired to be on a level similar to Lobo's. A lot of the things that Lobos told him never really left his mind, and he still desired those things. This is exactly what Omari Hardwick was talking about when he was describing the fact that the show didn't go in the direction that it was meant to go in, and that the fans were not really given what they were promised from the very beginning, because they were definitely building up Ghost to expand outside of New York City. Remember that.
Man, I have so much empathy for the fans, bro, because you were sold and told a story that did not continue, guys, in the way that it was sold and told to me that it would continue.
It's very obvious, like I've stated in the past, that James, who spent so much of his life in the streets, wasn't actually interested in becoming lieutenant governor like many have assumed. No matter how many times he tried to escape his past, he knew that it would always catch up to him, and he ultimately came to learn that the powers that be would never be fooled by the image that he was projecting to the rest of the world, because they still kept bringing up his past in his face.
The QCP, ladies, it seems as though I've lost the sight.
What? How? We were just there to get QCP up and running. Not just because of the urban demographic that you bring, but to shore up the former drug dealer ring.
I understand.
He knew that this type of criticism wasn't just going to magically disappear, and that it was obviously going to be a problem for him later on.
This afternoon. Ramona, call me when you have an update. If we can't move forward with James, I'll need to consider my other options. Rashad Tate is at the top of that list.
Rashad Tate?
And obviously, if you know James well, he had much bigger plans in his past already set in motion before he even crossed paths with guys like Rashad and all of these politicians. In fact, the only reason that he came across Rashad in the first place was because Simon wanted to work with James. So the only reason that we saw him in that particular space was because of Simon. But Simon and Ghost, with what I'm about to show you guys, they clearly had other big plans of their own from what we saw on the surface. This right here was only the tip of the iceberg, which is why Simon didn't want him anywhere near Rashad.
So what's on your mind? Stay away from Rashad, Tate. I saw the two of you talking. He's a distraction. One of your weaknesses. You did what you needed to do with Councilman Leonard. You keep him happy, he'll bring us in for a nice landing.
I actually liked some of what Tate had to say.
Of course you did. I get it, I really do, but this is business.
He had a certain specific plan and certain business that he wanted to get done with James outside of New York City. And this specific business he was talking with him here is clearly connected to the development projects that he wanted to get done with James after the election.
I have a couple of development projects I'd like you to take a look at after the election.
I'll talk to you soon, friend.
The development projects were his main goal throughout this entire time. That was basically the only reason that he wanted a business relationship with James from the very start.
If you agree to work with me in a new business venture, I will forgive every cent of your loan.
But why? Why this business venture? Why these development projects? Expansion. The more expansion they had, the more exposure they had. And the more exposure they had, the more money they had. Now, keep in mind, Simon was not the only person that wanted to expand with Ghost. Tommy also wanted the same thing that Simon wanted. Except Tommy just wanted to remain in the streets, whereas Ghost wanted a way out. But certain things were just getting in the way of him expanding his business. He had a lot of enemies, and one great example is Lobos. One of the things that Ghost and Tommy always wanted to do from the very beginning was to expand.
No matter what Lobo says, twice the product means twice the personnel, twice the exposure.
It's the moment we waited for.
Twice the fucking risk, Tommy.
We always wanted to expand. Now we ain't gotta beg for it. Lobos needs us to move this shit.
But obviously, Ghost didn't really trust people like Lobos on his corner. He always felt that there was going to be some trouble ahead of them if he kept surrounding himself with men like him. There was already too much heat on Lobos during that time, and he wanted to break away from that. And obviously, he wanted to trust other people that had far more money than Lobos. One of these guys was obviously Simon Stern. James could attract people to his business from all different walks of life, and that's something that Simon couldn't really do, which is why he always wanted to do business with James, and it's obvious that he had much bigger plans with him. For someone like him to make so much more money, he obviously wanted to do business with him, not only in New York, but also in other places.
The place already looks better since you entered the front door, James.
What's this?
I'm sending you on a little trip for the weekend. You like Miami, right? I need you to get these contracts signed for me.
Why can't you get your lawyers to send these directly?
I'm all about the human touch, and I think you have the right personality, charm, muscle to convince anyone to do what you want them to do.
You're saying it's going to be hard to convince them?
I'm saying you're the right man for the job. Just tell them how much you love working with me and what a great partner I am. That should do it.
This right here was the foundation of their business venture.
If you agree to work with me in a new business venture, I will forgive every cent of your loan.
About this business venture, I believe that Ghost was the face of it in the States, And Simon was the face of it overseas. Because remember, even when he was working with James, he was always overseas. For some strange reason, he was always overseas. And as soon as James called him when there was a problem, he would immediately show up. Just think about that.
We already have a black on the team who's bootstrapped his way to the top of the industry. Andre seems so redundant.
Simon, you just gonna let Tate walk all over us?
I go to Berlin to find myself, and I come back to this mess. For as long as I've known you, James, you have found a way to wriggle out from under every one of my impediments with aplomb. Wriggle away, my good man. James, when will you realize I am your only real friend?
Simon was his only real friend because only him was the one who was able to bridge the outreach and expansion that he always desired to have with someone like Lobos. But he couldn't necessarily get it from Lobos because the feds, like I said, they were closing in on him already. He had too much heat around him at that point. When you look back at the original series, you can see that Ghost had become fascinated with the idea of having his own cartel and being on the same level as Lobos. But just like I told you guys, he knew that Lobos' days on the streets were numbered already, and that the feds were closing in on him, whereas the Jimenez cartel were still untouchable. I'm sure that they definitely already had plans to do business with James, as they were already starting to work with Tommy. However, Dre got in the middle of all of that.
All across the world. I can arrange that your drugs be sold in each one of those hotels and nightclubs. A whole new revenue stream.
Now, just like I told you guys, although he did succeed in becoming lieutenant governor, he knew that based on his background, there was still a good chance of him being replaced by Rashad Tate in the long run. Rashad Tate was still at the very top of their list for a reason. Remember that. This is obviously because Rashad had people stalking James, keeping tabs on everything that he was doing when he wasn't wearing a suit. And when he was out there being Ghost, these were the very same people who hired undercover agents to watch James. Remember that.
Motherfucker. You hit? No, I ain't hit. When the f you was gonna tell me you in the war with ghosts? Step out of the vehicle with your hands above your head. Stay the f back. You better stay the f back.
Later in that same episode, we learned that these agents were following James for Rashad. Now, remember what Rashad told James in this scene right here.
You know, James, whatever you were doing out there, you're lucky these men are loyal to me, or your ass would be dead or in jail.
From their perspective, he could either end up dying or end up going to jail, which both would have been bad for their political campaign and their image, which is why he was always replaceable with Rashad in the first place. Think about it. They all knew James had a past, and Ghost would fake his death to avoid going back to prison. Based on his hallucination in that final episode where we saw him speak with Kanan, this entire political pursuit was only something that he just wanted to prove to himself, basically. He wanted to prove to himself that he could in fact succeed in breaking out into the legitimate world.
This is who I am. This is who I was all along. If I'm born somewhere else, if I ain't raised by you, come on, man, I'm in business school somewhere. I'm in this race anyway.
But while that was a great accomplishment, any rational person would have known that Cole still had unfinished business in the streets, based on how many people he burned down. He burned down Lobos, he burned down Milan, he had just recently killed Jason. Anyone connected to these people would have wanted to kill James, and in fact, there were still so many people after him. One of these people, of course, was Milan's wife. Remember Tatiana? She was still out there. And she never forgot about Ghost. She was also encouraging Jason to take out Ghost.
It's time for all of us to move on from Ghost permanently.
Yeah, it's not a problem. Just tell him we've been selling drugs in the club. He'll understand that he doesn't have an option but to go along.
You're not going back into the club. You're not going back to work with Ghost. I need him off the table entirely.
That was a big problem that Ghost still needed to deal with. After killing Jason, the Serbian Mafia were obviously still a big threat, and if he was still in danger, that means that the rest of his family was also in danger. Now keep in mind that Ghost never directly played a hand in burning down the Jimenez cartel, and based on what we saw from him back in the original series, it's obvious that he was fascinated with the idea of taking over their cartel.
Ain't nobody left.
Tú puedes tener tu propio cartel, ¿me entiendes? Te mudas al campo y dejas que ellos tomen todo el riesgo.
The Jimenez cartel card being thrown on top of Lobos, his former boss, symbolized the fact that he needed to make sure that Lobos was completely out of the way in order for him to start working with the Jimenez cartel to ultimately take over. I believe that the Jimenez cartel put him up to do all of this as a way for him to prove to them that he deserves a seat at their table to do business with them. That's why he had no problem moving on from Tommy at this particular point in the series. And that's why we saw him team up with Dre. But obviously, from what we saw, Dre went behind his back and started making his own plans with the Jimenez cartel. And that right there is something that didn't sit right with Ghost, which is why he wanted Dre completely out of the way. Obviously, once they started working with Dre, that's when all their problems started happening. And now Ghost, obviously, he would have to prove that he would bring more value to them compared to Dre. And the only way that he was going to be able to do that is obviously by doing something that Dre couldn't do. Remember, the only reason Elisa wanted Dre was because of the expansion in New York City.
Yo me voy a regresar a México, pero te pido de favor que te dejes de pendejadas con Dre.
¿Tú qué tienes con ese güey? ¿Por qué le das tanta importancia?
¿Cómo que por qué le doy tanta importancia? Porque él maneja nuestros negocios y gracias a él nos estamos expandiendo. Además, tú arruinas todo lo que tocas.
She low-key was behind this entire setup because she wanted her brother gone already. She felt that he was already a problem for the cartel. His reckless behavior was a problem for their cartel. So she was already looking for someone powerful enough to replace him. But remember, Dre was only limited to New York during that time. Dre just wanted to be the distributor in New York. But Ghost, with the connections that he had with Simon, he could have easily made the Jimenez cartel way more money than Dre. With all of the assets that he already had in place all over the country. Think about it.
We did you a favor with Lobos. We knocked out your biggest competitor with no collateral damage done to your organization whatsoever. You know that now, yet you still have not agreed. We know what this is. The Jimenez cartel symbol, Lada on your card. Your organization has left that on, rough estimate here. Hundreds of dead bodies. Your reputation precedes you. Nothing governs like fear. But what if you were exposed as a fraud?
What do you mean?
He means, what if they made it known we didn't kill Lobos, but we took credit for it anyway?
We all know that what matters most in this game is juice. More than weight, more than money. Money can't buy respect. If you didn't kill Lobos, someone else did. Someone else should be feared more than you. You give us the territory, access to the ports, and your little secret is safe with us. If you don't,
you're exposed. Wow.
Now, in order for him to take over a cartel of that size, he couldn't have possibly done it alone. Whenever Ghost had a problem, Simon was always there to help him fix it. We saw this multiple times throughout the series. James was a huge asset to Simon when it came to expanding and making money, and anyone getting in the way of him would be a liability. And the biggest of these people would be none other than Jacob Warner, who was told multiple times to leave James alone, but yet refused. And I want you guys to pay very, very close attention to what Steve, Ghost's political partner, says here.
Can you give us the room, please? Shut the door behind you. Thanks. You were told to leave James St. Patrick alone, but you didn't listen.
I beg your pardon?
You should know better than to go against the Democratic Party.
It seems to me that St. Patrick's death proves that the Justice Department was right to pursue that arrest warrant.
Yeah, unfortunately for you, the powers that be don't see it that way. But hey, look, you had a good run, right? I mean, at least you're getting out alive.
I'm far from done here.
That's what you think.
Well, you can't fire me.
The call's coming. If I were you, I'd start packing my things.
Get the fuck out of here.
Oh, there it is. Get it.
Remember what Simon said the last time that we saw him speaking with someone from law enforcement.
You find anything worthwhile, run it through my department. Anything else?
And if we don't find anything worthwhile, I'll need you to go away.
I don't take orders from you.
Everyone takes orders from me. The call's coming. If I were you, I'd start packing my things.
Get the out of here.
Oh, there it is. Everyone takes orders from me. Get it.
Even Jacob was so confused as to how easily he was fired by the Democratic Party. There was obviously someone with a lot of power and authority behind this. And remember, Simon had already fought for his seat with the Democratic Party and was already calling all of the shots with James behind the scenes. And whoever he wanted out of the way, he was obviously going to figure out a way to get rid of them, no matter who it was. Simon was clearly behind that phone call. You know, you would think that Steve, Ghost's political partner, would be more emotional about losing his friend, but for some strange reason, he has a smile on his face here. Why did he smile when Jacob told him that it was only right for the investigation to happen because James ended up dying?
It seems to me that St. Patrick's death proves that the Justice Department was right to pursue that arrest warrant.
Yeah, unfortunately for you, the powers that be don't see it that way.
He was smiling here, and it's obviously because he was hiding something. He knows something that nobody else knows. Think about this. Anybody, absolutely anybody, would be emotional over the fact that they lost someone that they were about to do big business with. But why is he smirking? Why was he smiling in the scene? This only further confirms that Ghost is still out there. He's still alive. And I believe that he was the person who sent Steve to speak with Jacob in the scene, because pay very close attention to what Steve says here. He says, "You had a good run. At least you're getting out alive."
But hey, look, you had a good run, right? I mean, at least you're getting out alive.
I'm far from done here.
At least you're getting out alive. I feel like that was a message, a direct message from Ghost himself, that he told Steve to tell Jacob right before he got that phone call. And I find it very convenient how that phone call just came in at the same exact time that Steve walked into that building. Think about it. He's clearly hiding something. He knows something that nobody else knows. He's not emotional here for a reason. He's smiling because he knows the truth about what James did. And I believe that Simon was behind that phone call based on what we've seen him do in the past. He's gone out of his way to protect Tariq, to get the police off the campus. Any rational person would want a murder investigated on their campus, right? But Simon, for some strange reason, didn't want the police presence around them. And I wonder why. I believe that it was to protect Tariq. At the end of the day, this was meant to protect Tariq. Someone else was pushing him to make sure that they don't get anything on Tariq. Think about it. Remember, Simon was always there whenever Ghost had a problem. He would literally be overseas, and as soon as James called him, he would literally show up to assist them with anything. Simon is the king on the chessboard in the Power Universe. If there's anyone that James ever wanted to follow and be more like when it came to learning how to operate outside of the drug game and into the legitimate business world, it was no one other than Simon. Simon was the only person who managed to move a step ahead of Ghost and was able to acquire the club. If you've ever paid attention to their relationship, you can tell that they definitely had more plans than what we knew and what we saw on the surface. Now, as I've stated before, someone like Ghost, who was more used to being a behind-the-scenes player, wouldn't have wanted himself out there so much. And considering the fact that he didn't leave any funds for the Queen Shot project, something that would have been so crucial to the lieutenant governor image that he was trying to hold up, it seriously makes you question where exactly the rest of all of that money went. The answer is very simple. Miami is one of the many places that Ghost was secretly expanding to with Simon. And remember, he was already putting his money into a lot of the clubs down there. Remember what Simon told James?
I have a couple of development projects I'd like you to take a look at after the election. I'll talk to you soon, friend. They had plans to finish buildings. Much like James, Simon was always interested in making as much money as he possibly could. And if you paid attention, they were already meeting with various people who would make the right investment for them to be able to make money in various different places like Miami.
Hell no. But you and I both know you need a lifeline.
That's what Stern is offering. A lifeline.
There's no way Stern's letting you go without a fight.
And I sure as hell am looking forward to it. Nice doing business with you.
Likewise.
You're a smart man.
If you remember correctly, Ghost seemed to already have been so familiar with Miami. It seemed like he already knew the streets very, very well, the restaurants very well.
Hola, hola. ¿Cuántos son dos? Sí.
And he already had a car that he owned down there, which only tells us that what he really wanted was to be able to expand his drug organization. When it comes to his drug network, he got rid of the top guys for a very specific reason. He got rid of Lobos. He got rid of Jason for a very specific reason. And it's because they were getting in the way of him expanding his network and working with other people, especially with people like Simon, who didn't want them being a problem in the future. At the end of the day, Ghost was all about making money. He was after the bag. And the life of a governor was never something he ever even talked about. Even with Angela from the very beginning of the series, like, just put it into perspective. You have someone like Ghost who was so immersed into that street life, and all of a sudden, he's just going to act brand new and think that the decisions that he made in his past life were not going to catch up to him. I'm sure that that transition felt very unnatural to him, which is why, like I said, he had no real interest in truly giving back to his community. He already had plans of his own set to go with Simon and other parts of the country. And I'm sure just with the people that Tommy was coming in contact with and was exposed to, he was also expanding his business to Los Angeles.
Yeah, I was just loading up my shipment. What's up?
There's someone I want you to meet. My guy right here, one of my highest earning distros in New York City, Tommy Egan. Tommy, Rodolfo Ramirez.
Yo, I know that. Los Reyes, right?
What you know about how we bang on the West Coast?
Not much, but I fucks with that Cali herb hard.
As you know, I'm looking toward expansion in the LA market. I may send you out to SoCal to work with Rodolfo.
Jay told me you just flipped 40 crates in 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of weight. You got a business partner?
Hell no. I'm a solo act.
Shit, man. You and me both.
Remember, Ghost and Tommy, they were both working for Jason, which means that the same people that Jason introduced Tommy to, he also introduced Ghost to. And obviously, when it came to expanding his business to the West Coast, Ghost would have obviously used this guy to his advantage. I find it very, very suspicious how this guy was repeatedly trying to contact Tommy, urging him to come to Los Angeles, almost as if someone else was pressuring him to get Tommy to come to the West Coast.
Yeah,
You're late, Way.
I'm jumping on Route 66 later today.
You were supposed to be here yesterday.
Just making a pit stop. Hello?
Where the fuck are you, man?
Rodolfo, why are you fucking up my ass on this?
Hey, you want to roll back with the attitude, pendejo? You're talking to your boss.
Yo, man, you might want to chill on that shit. Own boss now.
And it was only after this episode, when he told the guy that he was not going to the West Coast, that Liliana mysteriously showed up out of nowhere.
Who the fuck told you I was here?
Wait a minute. I know you.
Of course you do, pendejo. You're here to fucking kill me.
Seems like more like you trying to kill me.
It's self-defense.
Fucking scar, Liliana.
I highly doubt that someone like Liliana, who was always on the move to make money, was just sitting around in Chicago. Someone told her to go after Tommy. Ghost wouldn't be the type of person who would have just kept himself in one spot, especially with the amount of enemies that he made in New York City. He had too many enemies there. He knew that so many people were after him. One of these people who still had it out for him was Tatiana, Milan's wife. Ghost still had unfinished business with these people. Milan's people were still out there, and he knew that putting himself in the public's eyes would not only risk his safety, but also his children's safety.
Important to him is important to me. James. James. Please join us.
None of this sat well with Ghost, because now his kids were exposed to this life. They were also in danger. And obviously, he would have used absolutely anybody that he could use in order to take them out. Take a very close listen at what Milan says here.
You can kill me, but it is of no consequence because I am not Lobos. My organization does not die with me.
He said, my organization does not die with me. Meaning that even if he got rid of him, there were still people out there that were going to be going after him and his family, finishing what Milan started. And we've already met these people. I believe that Ghost sent Liliana down to Chicago to actually help Tommy do something about these particular people. Now, remember what Milan said in this scene.
You were so concerned with Lobos that you neglected me. It's very selfish. You took from me what was mine. You owe me, Ghost.
He said, you owe me, Ghost. And once again, we're seeing the Jimenez Cartel card. None of this was done by accident. Now, what exactly did all of this mean? Milan and the Serbs feared the Jimenez Cartel because they had more power than them, and he wanted Ghost to do something about them, but obviously, from what we saw, Ghost sided with the Jimenez Cartel and made a deal with them, and it was obviously because he wanted to take out the rest of the Serbian mafia with them. Because like I said, these people, they were a threat to his family, and they already knew where his family lived. Tatiana, she knew about his kids, and they were still out there. She knew where they lived, and that's something that obviously didn't sit right with Ghost the second that he saw them in his apartment.
You will stall and deal with me like you did Lobos, but first remember, my security team is in your clubs. You know your home, your family.
At this point, I believe that Ghost started realizing that from this point forward, he wasn't going to be able to wipe out Milan and the rest of the Serbian mafia by himself. These people were a threat to his family. Keep that in mind. And at this point, I'm very certain that he most likely started to figure out a way to plant his foot in the Jimenez cartel. Just because he got rid of Milan doesn't mean that they weren't still after Ghost. And just based on how Tatiana was speaking, she never forgot about him, and was even so curious to know who exactly took him out because she wanted him dead all along.
Your partner, Ghost. How did it happen? I always thought you would do it.
Now you thought wrong. Wasn't me.
And it's very obvious that Ghost was aware about this, and he would be smarter than to just let them come for him so easily after they found out about him trying to go legit and potentially making serious moves to hunt them down. The Serbs, from what we've seen in Force, they are still very, very active. I believe that he actually sent Liliana down there to assist Tommy in taking them down, because as long as they were still around, his family would always be in danger. Now, what exactly could prove that Liliana was actually working for Ghost and the Jimenez cartel this entire time? I want you guys to take a very close look at the scene where Tommy confronts Liliana, and notice if you see anything that looks familiar.
Motherfucker.
If Tommy didn't jam his foot into the floor and find this, we would have never known that Liliana was hiding this. He would have never known that she was hiding this from him. And the question is why? Why didn't she want him to see this? And why was there still product from the Jimenez cartel out there?
It's always good running into old friends.
Liliana didn't want Tommy to see this for a very specific reason, and she was clearly hiding a lot from him. There was obviously a lot that she was not telling him, and you have to question why exactly didn't she want him to see this in the first place. This is all connected to Ghost. He sent Liliana down to Chicago and was telling her to hide this from Tommy. Remember that scene when she asked him about Ghost?
Yo, if me and Ghost knew you had skills like this, we would have taken you off the routes and put you in the lab.
Is Ghost gonna be coming down to Chicago to get down on this?
Nah.
You two finally decided to break up?
Ghost dead.
Anybody, absolutely anybody who was watching the news would have known that a lieutenant governor in New York City was killed, quote unquote killed. The news report was literally everywhere. So why is it? Why is it that Liliana was acting like she didn't have any clue about what happened to Ghost? Think about it. Why was she acting like this? I believe that she was trying to cover her tracks this entire time so that Tommy wouldn't catch on to what she was really doing in Chicago and who actually sent her down there, and so that he wouldn't find out who she was actually working for. You have to put this into perspective. Wherever Tommy went, there was trouble, and if Ghost just wanted to handle certain things on his own, I don't think that he would have wanted Tommy around him at the moment. I feel that he would have wanted Tommy doing his own thing for quite some time while he handles what he feels that he needs to handle on his own. Because remember, whatever trouble followed Tommy, it also followed Ghost. And I feel like Ghost intentionally did all of this to keep Tommy out of his way in order for him to completely take over at the end of the day. If you remember that scene correctly, when Liliana was dying, it looked like she was trying to tell Tommy something, but couldn't necessarily get the words out. And I believe that she was trying to tell him that Ghost was still alive. That's what she called out to him immediately.
Fuck, Liliana.
Unfortunately, she was only seconds away from taking her last breath, but she clearly was calling him because she wanted to tell him something before she died. Guys, it's literally right in our faces at this point. She was hiding something from Tommy this entire time. Now, when Tommy arrived to Chicago, Diego and Elisa Jimenez were already long dead. But based on what we saw from Liliana, who was obviously hiding something from Tommy, we know that the Jimenez cartel did in fact survive, and that their product was still being distributed. And the big question is how? How exactly did the Jimenez cartel survive if both Alicia and Diego Jimenez were already gone? It's obviously because much like they made a deal with Dre, they immediately made a deal with Ghost after the first arrest. Dre didn't do anything to help their situation, but this guy, who came out of nowhere, mysteriously managed to get her free again. Remember that. I believe that this guy was secretly working for Ghost, and getting Alicia free was Ghost's way of making sure that he would start doing business with them, because somebody clearly took over their cartel after they were gone. And if there's anyone that they would have wanted to do business with after Dre was taken out, it obviously would have been Ghost. The Jimenez cartel realized that if it wasn't for Ghost, their biggest competition, Lobos, would have never been killed. And I'm sure that they realized that they both had a common enemy, which was the Serbian Mafia. Now, how exactly did Ghost take over the Jimenez cartel, and when did this exactly start? If he truly wanted to be successful when it came to running our cartel, he couldn't have just stayed in New York City. He had to make some adjustments and break away from just being in New York. So when exactly did this expansion really start? If he wanted to prove to the cartel that he would be worthy of running their business and make them more money, he was going to have to show them that he could actually do it. I believe that all of this started when he successfully managed to kill Milan, because remember, the Serbs and the Jimenez cartel, they had bad blood between each other. And as soon as Ghost got rid of their biggest threat, this is exactly when the Jimenez cartel felt comfortable showing themselves out in New York City in public. And this is basically why they wanted to meet James in the first place. Now, what would further convince them that James was the right person to take over their cartel was the expansion that he was developing with Simon. Remember, that's the biggest thing that Alicia always wanted. She wanted expansion in the States, and Ghost and Simon, they were already establishing that. So basically everything that she wanted from James, he already had established. He had already established that with Simon. As soon as he finished establishing his business venture with Simon, that's when I believe that they officially made James their top guy to consider taking over their cartel if something happened to them. And like we saw in the series, they ended up getting killed. Diego was killed by Kanan, and the Serbian Mafia, they took out Alicia. But obviously, from what we saw, like I was saying, someone that they knew and that they really trusted obviously took over their cartel, because their cartel survived. It didn't die with them. And the only person that was obviously more suitable than anybody who had the right expansion out there to sell their products down in Miami and pretty much anywhere that they wanted, it was obviously Ghost. The answers have been right in our faces this entire time. I believe that this is the reason why Angela was tracking both Ghost and Tommy. Remember what she said?
What the
Hi, Tommy.
It's a motherfucking setup!
I have reason to believe you're the New York distributor for the Jimenez cartel. The people in these photos are much of Lobos' last known organization with the Jimenez in front of the Richbury Hotel. I'm gonna wrap up their entire organization, including you and Jamie, if you don't play ball.
This is obviously why he didn't think twice about killing her.
Did you really think I wasn't gonna find out what you did? What I did?
He's loving this shit. You know that, Tasha. That I'm living with this. That the woman I love is gone.
Yeah, I feel really bad about that.
Tasha, look. Hey.
Many people could argue that it doesn't make any sense for Tasha at the moment to be secretly working for Ghost, like I've mentioned in my theories, but it actually makes perfect sense. If you look back at the original series, she was the one pushing him to beat Simon at his own game and to gain something from their relationship, basically. She was the person who handed the club over to Simon while Ghost was in prison.
Starlord. He don't want money. He wants me to work with him.
No shit. I knew he was lying. But you're smarter than him. I know you're not gonna let him beat you. What's the business?
Real estate. Guess he needs a black face for a tax break and a headline.
Well, it's good press. That can work both ways, right? I mean, Simon Stern doing business with you is good for your image. Look, I know you, Ghost. You are gonna figure out a way to use him to win.
I'm convinced that they've all been secretly working together this entire time. Remember how easily Simon just met with Tasha on that final episode of the original Power? This is someone who's always busy, he's a billionaire, but he was immediately there for Tasha. This is very suspicious. Someone else was behind sending him there to have a meeting with her, to give her what she wants. Now, remember, in my previous theory, I highlighted the fact that whenever a character from the original Power resurfaces, we mysteriously see this very same envelope that is passed to them. The same envelope we saw when Ghost sent Tariq's letter is the same exact envelope that we saw in Ghost's will reading in that final episode. He mysteriously sent this to Tommy because, for some reason, he already had a new car set for him to leave New York with a location on it. But why didn't he ever tell him this in person when he met with him? Why wait until all of this happened to put this in an envelope, in the same type of envelope, to just give it to Tommy? Think about it. This right here was intended to tell us that this was going to be the way that Ghost was going to continue communicating with the people that he wanted to communicate with. And we've clearly seen it already with Tasha and also with Tariq when he got that letter from him. None of this is being done by accident. Now, many people may argue that Ghost never used these type of envelopes. And the big question is, when exactly did he start using these envelopes? Take a very, very close look at this scene right here and notice if you see anything that looks very familiar. Look very closely. Simon was the one who started operating with these envelopes when it came to doing business with James. And remember, when he sent him down to Miami, what did we also see when he was out in Miami? Take a very close look. this very same envelope. He started operating like this as soon as he started expanding with Simon. All of the clues have been right in our faces this entire time. And if we've already seen Tasha with these very same envelopes, that basically already confirms, like I said, that they've all been secretly working together behind the scenes to protect Tariq. We saw him use these envelopes back in the original series. He's clearly behind all of this right here. And this all started when he started working with Simon. Think about it. There is clearly something that Simon is not telling Tariq.
Okay, you need to tell me what's going on. Because if you're in some kind of danger, we are, I need to know now.
There's no danger, okay? Nothing like that, I promise.
Then what's wrong?
Why does something gotta be wrong?
Because I've seen that look before on your father's face.
Also, right after this scene when Tasha met with Tamika, remember what we saw? We heard someone else in that house, and there was an extra chair opened. And now once again, we're seeing something very similar. If you look very closely, you can see that there was a third extra plate on the dinner table, which is clearly telling us that someone else was in that house. And remember, Yaz was not part of this dinner scene right here. So what was the point of this extra plate being there in the first place? And just based on how Tasha was looking at Tariq when he walked into her apartment, she was clearly hiding something. It looked like she didn't want him to find out about something that she was hiding from him. Just look at the look on her face. Ghost was definitely hiding in the house, and you have to question who exactly bought that house for Tasha and Yaz in the first place. Think about this. Think about all of this. This is very suspicious. Ghost is a very smart person. He knows how to hide in plain sight. He's not an idiot. This is not Tariq. Tariq can't even fight, and he can't even hold a gun the right way. Like, come on, bro.
Gun on me? Huh? In church? Oh, you definitely going to hell. Stay right there. Right there.
What type of apex predator is this?
Bruh.
This is honestly sad at this point. Ghost would have never let this happen to him.
I'm fucking tired of those motherfuckers thinking they can stand against me. I'm Tariq St. fucking Patrick. I killed my own fucking father. Bruh.
Now obviously, if Ghost wanted his cartel and drug network to actually be successful, expansion would not be the only thing that he would have to have been worried about. If he truly wanted to be successful, he would have had to eliminate the competition, and the Serbian Mafia was obviously at the very top of his list. Even with Jason gone, the Serbians were still very active in Chicago. Based on what we saw in Season 2 of Force, I believe that Tommy finished what Liliana was sent there to do. He successfully managed to get with CBI, and he managed to get rid of Ghost's competition. Now keep in mind that Season 4 of Book 2 is a lot more ahead than 4 Season 2. So much could have happened throughout the timeline that we still have yet to see. And if there's anyone Ghost would want to work with again, it's obviously the one person he started with. And I believe that he was already trying to contact him when he first arrived to Chicago. Remember, the Jimenez cartel had a big presence down in Mexico, and obviously that means that a lot of their profit would be coming in from California.
But there is other business too. You ever been to Los Angeles? You know, I don't like dry heat. I would like you to consider taking a trip out there soon. Meet some mutual friends. We are expanding our reach. We'd like to see if you can run both coasts. But Ghost can't be anywhere near it.
If Ghost wanted to be the Serbs at their own game when it came to expanding to the West Coast, he would have had to already been in contact with some of the best players out there. And this guy was obviously one of them. I find it very suspicious how this guy continuously kept calling Tommy, pressuring him to come down to the West Coast. And it's probably because Ghost actually wanted him down there in the first place. Because remember, that was the deal that Tommy made with the Jimenez Cartel when they were still around.
We had a deal. I expect to be fully repaid.
And what would you suggest?
I want our old territory back, and I want 6 new Toros Locos corners.
No way.
And I want access to your port connections in California. I mean, of course, I'll kick you back a percentage.
And your Serbian employers told you to ask for this?
No. I mean, Jason wants me to expand to the West Coast, sure, but you already owe me. I killed Lobos.
We had Lobos stabbed to death in prison.
That's cute that you're trying to take credit for it. But that wasn't you, and it didn't work. He survived. And he made a deal to flip on everybody, including you two. No, I capped Lobos, and since then you've been numero uno in Mexico, and you're still free to travel stateside, so you owe me twice.
We will have to take some time to consider it.
Okay. Don't take too long.
Tommy wanted their most profitable connections down in California, and if Ghost did take over the Jimenez Cartel, this would obviously be something that he would provide Tommy with in exchange for him successfully getting rid of the Serbs down in Chicago, which is exactly what Joseph Sikora is referring to when he's talking about Tommy's journey being over in Chicago.
When Gary Lennon and the other writers and I were mapping out our 3rd season, we saw that we were telling a complete story and that this was the perfect opportunity to stay true to our artistic vision and make this the final chapter in Tommy's journey in Chicago. But don't worry, Tommy's journey is far from over.
This basically confirms that Tommy already did what he was meant to do in Chicago, and at a certain point, Ghost is going to give him what the Jimenez Cartel promised to give him in order for him to make as much money as possible. And remember, this is still what Tommy truly desires.
You ever get tired of being at the bottom of the top?
He is tired of being at the bottom of the top, and what better way to see Tommy truly get to the top than to see him do it next to Ghost. This is exactly where the Power Universe is going next, and this is obviously what 50 Cent is talking about when he's saying that the Power Universe will be expanding. Whenever we see Ghost return, I believe that he will definitely be different from when we last saw him, and he will definitely already be in the position that he always aspired to be in all those years ago when he was around Lobos. As much as it seemed like being a lieutenant governor was what he was really going for, he was already too deep into the game, and deep down I believe that he knew that he still had so many enemies out there and unfinished business that he needed to take care of in order for his family to truly be safe, which is why he abandoned the Queen's Shard project in the first place. Why would he waste all of his time promoting himself as someone who's going to give back to his community and then just abandon the Queen's Shard project? Like, actually think about it. He never left any money behind for it either in his will reading. I'll be explaining this more in my next video. Remember, Ghost, he was running for lieutenant governor. You're telling me that this is his big night and he didn't have any security with him, watching everything around him on that night? Think about it. Ghost had people all around that building protecting him. Remember, back in the very first season of Power, they also show us that he had a security team that was part of the club. And I feel like the last thing that Steven, his political partner, would have wanted is for Ghost to end up getting hurt on that night, especially on that night. They showed us Kanan in the morgue. They showed us Angela in the morgue. They showed us every other character's dead body in the morgue except Ghost. And he was literally the face of the show. And now we finally have answers. Remember, in that final scene with Ghost, right after Tommy leaves, it looked like there was more to that scene, but it faded to black. almost as if they didn't want us to see what exactly happens next. And I feel like this was a last minute decision from Coney Kemp and the rest of the executive producers that wanted to hide this particular ending. They wanted to hide what exactly happened after Tommy got out of there.
I read your article today in Deadline, and it said you guys filmed multiple endings in case one of them leaks out.
Ooh.
So my question was, what do you plan to do with that extra content? Well, say nothing gets leaked out, right? Everything goes.
I mean, has that ever
according to
happened
schedule.
though?
No,
Has it ever
actually
happened that nothing
hasn't.
leaked? Has that ever happened?
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Tommy will most likely be the first person who finds out the truth about what happened to Ghost, based on the fact that he took the Jimenez Cartel card off the brick and kept it to himself, and didn't tell Liliana about it. I believe that he himself is questioning how exactly the cartel managed to survive if both Diego and Elisa Jimenez were already gone. I believe we saw him take that card for a reason, and it's because we're going to see him get to the bottom of who exactly took over their cartel, which is going to lead him directly to Ghost. In this shot, Tommy is standing in his apartment, and we can see that he's looking at someone sitting in a chair, but they don't reveal who it is. This is also in the same exact setting where we saw Tommy take the Jimenez Cartel card. Also, pay attention to Tommy's background here, where we see him looking at someone sitting in a chair. Now, pay attention to Joseph Sikora's background here, where he records this video talking about Ghosts Never Die.
We're just getting warmed up, and I can't wait to show you what we have planned next. Want to give a big shout out to all the players, the cast, the crew from Power Book 4 Force, and tell you to tune in, because ghosts never die and power never ends.
Like I've said before, I believe Joseph recorded this video where he says Ghost Never Dies immediately after filming this particular scene, and there has to be a reason why they never showed us who exactly is sitting in this chair. As for when exactly the return could actually happen, this could either happen at the end of Season 3 or in the new spinoff that they're developing, because I highly doubt that they're going to create a whole new show without giving the fans what they've been asking for so many years. I believe it's going to be interesting to see the parallels between a young Ghost working with Tommy and an older Tommy working with his son. I believe that is going to be the future of the Power universe, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. All of the clues have literally been right in our faces this entire time. Ghost has been hiding in plain sight. Obviously, for any drug network and cartel to truly thrive and be successful, he's got to have multiple people all over the country distributing his product. Obviously, from what we saw, he's already met with people down in Florida. We saw him close a deal with a distributor in Miami. He had already met with people down at the West Coast. I'm pretty sure that this guy who was calling Tommy is his distributor in Los Angeles. Now, the big question is, who exactly is this distributor in New York? I believe that there are 7 individuals who have been working for him here. Two-Bit, Chinadu, Obi, Zion, Carter, and Nico. I'll be explaining how exactly they've been working for him in part 4. Stay tuned. Before this video ends, if anyone from Stars is watching this video, it's always been my dream to work on Power. Whether if it's in the cast or behind the scenes, I would love the opportunity to work on Power Origins. Just make sure to contact me through my email in the description down below, and I would really appreciate it if all of my subscribers would go on ahead and subscribe to my music channel, Alex G. The link is in the description down below. I would really appreciate your support. Thank you for watching. As always, more Power content is coming.
Maniac beat.
Moving, cruising, you and gang who you fooling. Up burgers are shooting. Off the Henny on moving, cruising. Louis Drip exclusive. Up burgers are shooting. Off the Henny on moving, cruising. You and gang who you fooling. Up burgers are shooting. Off the Henny on moving.